And I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about fiber, which is probably one of my favorite topics, just because there are so many health benefits. And this is something that I always try to include in my programming and when I'm talking to friends and family to encourage them to include more of, just because there are so many good things that fiber can do for us in our health. So let's take a look at some of those health benefits. So for people with digestive issues, fiber can help normalize bowel movements by adding bulk to the stool, which will make it easier to pass. Fiber helps to maintain bowel health and improves our gut flora, so those little microbes that are living all throughout our digestive system. In addition to lowering cholesterol, fiber can also help reduce blood pressure and inflammation. In people with diabetes, fiber, particularly soluble fiber, can slow the absorption of sugar and help improve blood sugar levels, making it a heart-healthy addition to our meals. And high fiber foods tend to be more filling than low fiber foods in general, so you're likely to eat less and stay satisfied longer, helping you achieve a healthy weight. So as you can see, there are numerous reasons why we should be adding more fiber to our diets each and every day. But the sad reality is that less than 5% of Americans are actually hitting the target. Most people consume around 14 grams of fiber per day, which is not quite enough. We want to aim for 21 to 38 grams of fiber per day, depending on your age and gender, and you can find yourself there in that table. So a good goal would be 6 to 8 grams of fiber per meal or 3 to 4 grams of fiber per snack. High fiber foods are good for your health, but adding too much fiber too quickly, it can promote gas or bloating and even cramping if you're on the lower end of fiber intake. So it's recommended that you increase fiber gradually over a few weeks, and this will allow the natural bacteria in your digestive system to adjust to that change. Also, drinking plenty of water is recommended. Fiber works best when it absorbs water, and again, making your stool soft and bulky and easier to pass. And be careful with non-food sources. Excessive use of fiber supplements is associated with greater risk of intestinal problems. So your food sources are going to be your best bet. A high fiber food is considered 3 grams of fiber or more per serving. So when you're at the grocery store looking at labels and comparing different food products, you can check to make sure that the food you're looking at and choosing has 3 grams of fiber or more per serving. All right, so people ask, what type of fiber should I be eating? And both soluble and insoluble fiber are important to include and important for different reasons, as you can see in the first bullet under each column. The amount of fiber and insoluble fiber varies in different plant foods, but most foods will contain a combination of both. So to receive the greatest health benefit, it's good to eat a wide variety of high fiber foods from the different food groups like fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes. Refined or processed foods like your pulp-free juices, white breads, white pastas, these are going to be lower in fiber. That refining process is going to remove the outer coat or the bran, and this lowers the fiber content. Enriched foods like your breakfast cereals will have some of those B vitamins and iron added back in, but not necessarily the fiber. This is a really interesting study that I wanted to share, and this is from the University of Illinois. And it shows that eating avocado as part of your daily diet can help improve your gut health. We know avocados are a heart-healthy food because they contain high amounts of monounsaturated fat. They also contain high amounts of dietary fiber, 12 grams per avocado. The researchers in the study found that people who ate avocado every day as part of a meal had a greater abundance of gut microbes that break down fiber and produce metabolites that support health. They also had greater microbial diversity compared to people who did not receive the avocado in the study. So we know eating fiber isn't just good for us, it's also important for the microbiome. One of the researchers noted that we can't break down the dietary fibers, but certain gut microbes can. So when we consume fiber in our meals, it's a win-win for our gut microbes as well as for our health. So now that we know some more about the health benefits and also how many grams of fiber we should be getting each day and in our meals and snacks, let's take a look at a few easy ways that you can boost fiber in your eating pattern. All right, let's start with snacks. So these are meant to be small amounts of food that will tide you over until your next meal. So if we want to make our snacks count, we can add more fruits and vegetables. Not only will they keep us feeling full longer, they will also add important phytochemicals for all of our body's needs. These are some of my favorite snacks, and these all have 3 or more grams of fiber per serving. So as you can see, most of these contain fiber as well as protein, which is going to have a satiating effect. So your vegetables with hummus and nut butter, always a great option. You can do 3 cups of popcorn. If you air pop it, you'll get less fat. And you can also sprinkle on your own seasonings to reduce the sodium. And berries, these are a great source of fiber as well. So 1 cup of blackberries or raspberries has 8 grams of fiber, blueberries has 4, and strawberries has 3. And if you top it with Greek yogurt, you're gonna get some of those gut healthy probiotics. And we can also make our meals more wholesome and fiber rich with whole grains. So my plate tells us to make half our grains whole. In other words, our grain should contain all of the grain kernel. So even people on a gluten-free diet can have their grains and eat them too. There's a wonderful world out there of whole grains. There's lots of different options. Some will take longer to cook than others, so keep that in mind. But you can try replacing some of those refined grains like white rice in your diet with some of these options. White rice has less than 2 grams of fiber per cup. Whole grains will also boost your vitamin and mineral count for the day. So can you guess what type of whole grains we have pictured on the slide? In the top left, we have a tricolored quinoa, and this will give you 5 grams of fiber per cup. To the right, we have bulgur wheat, and this is in one of my favorite foods, tabbouleh, and this has 8 grams fiber. Oats, another great option and very versatile. I like to make savory oats in the morning to break away from that sweet bowl of oatmeal. So I like to top it with an egg and avocado, sometimes pesto or hummus. And wheat berries. These are going to take the longest to cook out of the ones pictured, but they also provide the most fiber at 20 grams per cup. And because of their texture, they work really well in salads. And I'm going to end my portion of the presentation on this slide, which is one of my all-time favorite foods, legumes. On average, beans provide 7 or more grams of fiber per half cup serving. They really are the magical fruit. Peas and lentils also pack a punch with 8 grams per half cup. So by including more of these budget-friendly foods throughout the week, we can help reduce our disease risk. They're among the best foods in terms of amount of nutrients per unit price. And a little fun fact, during the Great Depression in the United States, they were called poor man's meat because of their high nutritional value and low cost. So here's a few ways that you can add more legumes to your diet. You can make a big batch of beans or lentils to use in various recipes throughout the week. An easy way to do this is to use a pressure cooker, which really cuts down on the time. Any leftovers you can freeze for later use. If you're working with a bag of dried beans, a typical 1-pound bag will yield roughly 6 cups, so that's quite a bit. So you can make a big batch and then freeze portion sizes in freezer bags for later use. And these will stay good in the freezer for about 6 months, and that's for best quality. You can roast some chickpeas for a satisfying snack. You can also try replacing all or some of the meat in your recipes with beans and lentils, or add them to your pasta for different flavors and textures. If I'm making pasta, I usually like to add red kidney beans or cannellini beans, and it just depends on the recipe I'm using. You can also replace all or part of the fat with mashed or pureed beans in different desserts like brownies, cookies, and cakes. Beans will give the baked items additional protein and fiber and reduce the fat, cholesterol, and calories. I have done this several times with my classes, and no one can ever tell that there's beans in the brownies. I'm always surprised that they can't tell, but it really does add a lot of health benefits and takes away some of that fat and cholesterol. If you make black bean brownies, I highly suggest adding a little bit of instant coffee, which boosts that chocolate flavor. And we also have a recipe on our website for pinto bean cake, which is excellent. All right, so is anyone else getting hungry yet? I know I am. So let's see what's cooking with Mary Liz for some inspiration on how we can add more fiber to our favorite foods. And before I turn it over, I'll start sharing my screen, but I wanted to let you know that for the best viewing experience of the food demonstration, you'll want to make sure that your view is in speaker view. So in the top right-hand corner, you should see options for speaker view or gallery view. So make sure it's on speaker, and that will make sure that the demo is center stage. All right, Mary Liz, I'm going to turn it over to you. Let me stop.
All right,
sharing.
thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
And I'm glad that everyone's here. I'm getting hungry. Thank you for all that good information. I'm a big fan of the black bean brownies and for adding beans to lots and lots of different things. Can you all see my screen?
Looks good.
Looks good?
Yes.
Okay, because for some reason I can't, so that's all right. This morning we're going to make two recipes, black bean burgers and black bean blueberry smoothie. And both of these recipes use very simple ingredients that most of us will have around our house. And the other thing about them is that if you don't have a particular ingredient, you can substitute with many other things. So we're going to begin with just a can of low sodium or reduced sodium black beans that have been rinsed, and then just give them a rough chop. And you can tell I've started here a little bit. Use a fork or a pastry cutter. And the reason we do that rather than put it into a blender is because you want some texture to your sandwich, to your burger. And so we're just going to give them a rough little cut with our fork. And then we're going to begin to add the other ingredients. So you want to still be able to see that several of the beans still look like beans. And I think that will just about do it. So let's add some of our other ingredients. And we're going to add one well-beaten large egg. And that will be, it will act as a binder to help bind all the other ingredients together. And then we have some seasoning. So I've chopped up, it says 3/4 teaspoon of garlic, and I did about 1.5 cloves. And also in the recipe, it says salt and pepper to taste. And so as I was chopping the garlic, I added a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper to it, because that makes the garlic kind of release a little bit of liquid, and it helps for it to mix a little bit better and chop a little bit easier. This particular recipe calls for chili powder, 1¼ teaspoons. If you don't like chili powder, you could use any other flavoring. I was thinking as I was making this last night that, Italian seasoning or some fresh herbs out of the garden, dill or oregano or basil. I think that would make a really nice, differently flavored black bean. The other thing that would go well with the chili powder would be to chop up some cilantro or add a little bit of dried cumin. So again, like I said, this is very versatile. Do you have to use black beans? Certainly not. They just are what we are more familiar with. And I think that the reason for that is because the black bean gives it that look of a ground beef burger. You know, not that that's all that necessary, but it's kind of the look that people are accustomed to. And we all know we eat first with our eyes. And so we want to make sure that what we're making is appealing to the folks we're serving the food to. So that's all there is, just a very few ingredients. We gave them a little bit of a rough chop. And now let's see if we can't form these burgers. It did say in the recipe that it's a good idea to chill these before cooking. And so we might have a little bit of trouble keeping them together today, but we're going to do our best. So you're supposed to make 4 patties out of this recipe. So I'm going to start with one. I've got my electric skillet on a medium setting, and you can kind of hear it starting to sizzle a little bit. Now, you know, if I were here by myself, I'd be forming this patty with my hands, but I don't want to step away and wash my hands. So we're going to try and do this all with utensils. So that gives you just a general look to the patties themselves, and kind of, as I said, take your hands and form that patty just like you would with beef or pork or chicken or turkey or whatever you're used to making your burgers out of. And so we're going to let those cook a little while, and I'm going to make the next recipe. Again, please, if you have any questions, type them in the chat box. We'll address them at the end. But I'm telling you, I wish we had some way for you to smell what is cooking here. It smells wonderful. The chili powder is a wonderful spice to use in this. So I'm going to shift gears here. I'm going to take the skillet away. It's going to continue cooking. And now it's time for our black bean smoothie. And this also has very few ingredients, super versatile, and super easy to accomplish. Now, I will tell you that I am using a large kind of high-powered commercial blender, but I'm fairly certain you could use just your regular household blender for this. And I made this at home a couple of nights ago, and although my husband said he, you know, would not eat it frequently, he thought it was okay. And I take that as a roaring endorsement from him. So few ingredients. We're going to start with a cup of vanilla Greek yogurt. And as Kristen said, you know, this is going to add those friendly bacteria, those good probiotic bacteria. The other thing about Greek yogurt is that it has a higher protein content than other types of yogurt. So that's a little bonus.
And Mary Liz,
Yes.
if you can move your camera a little bit more.
We are doing it right now.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
We can see that much better. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. And then it also calls for honey. Now this says 1 to 2 tablespoons of honey. To me, that sounds a lot. So I think if you were making it the first time, make it with a couple of teaspoons of honey or any sweetener of your choice. And then you can build up if it's not quite sweet enough. But I would rather add 2 than to say it's too sweet. So I just put about half the honey in. So that's about 1 tablespoon of honey. I really think it's going to be just fine. And then it also calls for a banana. If you don't like bananas, or you don't have a banana, or you're wanting to get some of that really good healthy fat and a little more fiber, use an avocado. And I would say probably half an avocado, maybe a little bit more, depending on how big the avocado is. But that would be a nice addition to this smoothie as well. And then here come our black beans. And this is a half a cup, again, of the rinsed, no sodium black beans. Not very many, but just enough to make it work. And then we have a cup of frozen blueberries. And that's going to give it a nice chill to make it'll make it that slushy texture that we're used to with a smoothie. All right, so Caitlin, I'm going to blend this up. So if you can mute me for about 5 seconds.
And we're muting Mary Liz so that she doesn't have the huge noise of her blender. So we will turn her audio back on when the blending is complete. All right, Mary Liz, I've put a request for you to unmute. So if you are ready, go ahead and click that for me and you can start continuing your call.
Okay, can you all hear me now?
Yes, we
At first
can.
that was a little stiff for this machine, so I added a wee bit of water. I think, actually, when I was reading the recipe, I thought it didn't have enough liquid. I would probably add some sugar-free lemonade. That's what we add to our smoothies at our house, or a little bit of fat-free milk. But you can see that it looks really good. I don't know if we can see it from the side, but pretty darn good. Now this smoothie, beans and berries, we can't say enough good about those. They are our superfoods. One serving of this smoothie has 7 grams of fiber and 14 grams of protein. So that's a really good one dish nutrition powerhouse. And through the magic of television or webcam, we have our black bean burger. And I even splurged a little bit and got some of those whole wheat sandwich thin buns. And I wish you could be here because our whole office is going to be eating these for lunch. The black bean burger has 9 grams of fiber and 11 grams of protein. So if you eat these two together, although that'd be, I would certainly cut down that smoothie serving, but you can have a total of 16 grams of fiber out of this sandwich and drink. And I'm not even counting the bun or the lettuce, so there'd be even more. So I hope you enjoy it. The recipes are attached to the handout. And as I said, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and Caitlin will address them and we'll answer your questions. Thank y'all very much for letting me cook for you.
That looks great, Mary Liz. I have to try that smoothie soon. I've never had beans in a smoothie. I've had lots of other vegetables, but I've never tried beans. So I'm definitely going to have to try that soon.
All right, as Kristen gets the presentation reshared, we thank you for your time this morning. Since we are towards the 11:30 hour, half hour, I guess, we'll answer some questions. If you need to leave for any reason, thank you for joining us today. Before you go, we want to remind you that we have our final week of our Healthy Beets series. And so if you have not registered for that webinar and you would like to, we definitely want you to sign up for that one. Also, before you go, we really do appreciate your feedback on what it is that we have taught today, how you've experienced the webinar. And so I'm going to put a survey link in the chat. I can type and talk at the same time, which is not always successful. We appreciate you taking a few minutes to fill that out. After completing that survey, that will automatically redirect you to the handouts for today's lesson. So that will include both of the recipes that Mary Liz demonstrated, as well as some of the information that Kristen presented. So we had very short time, so I know we didn't probably get to cover everything that everyone, wanted to know today, but we really appreciate your time this morning. So we do have a couple of questions. Kristen, I'm going to start with you. Can you talk a little bit more about how does fiber impact the gut microbiome?
Sure. Yeah, so there's a lot of new research around this, and it's an exciting area of research. So it's like the avocado slide I showed, I talked about it there briefly, but basically there's a lot of bacteria that resides in our colon, and it helps digest that fiber that we eat into usable metabolites, like short chain fatty acids. And these metabolites then influence our health and impact our health outcomes. So they help to reduce our cholesterol, they help keep our blood sugar levels steady and normal. They help to reduce inflammation and also blood pressure. So eat more fiber. It's really important.
There are a lot of oils on the market. So there's olive oil and canola oil. Do any of these oils have fiber?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to ask that to Mary Liz. No, the oils do not have fiber.
To Mary Liz, I know you are muted, so I'm going to give you a minute to unmute while I ask the question. Can you repeat the amount of breadcrumbs in your recipe?
I think she has to unmute herself. Maybe she walked away.
But to that question, you will have access to the recipe. So if you want to check what the amount is, you'll be able to see that in the recipe when we send it out.
Sorry, I was washing my hands. Did I have a question?
Yes.
Okay, what was it?
What was the amount of breadcrumbs in the burger recipe?
It was a third of a cup.
1/3 cup.
Yes.
Awesome.
Good memory, Tammy.
Let's see. And I think the main question I wanted to check in, will we send out a follow-up for today's call with the survey link? I believe, yes, we do that. I will double check, but I believe that is correct. We will send out the survey links. If you don't get to the survey today during the call, you'll have a second opportunity to do that. There was a question about purchasing thin buns, or I've seen them as like sandwich thins too.
Yeah, I got them at the grocery store yesterday, and they're called sandwich thins. And here's what they look like.
Oh, those are good. I've had those.
Yeah, those sandwich thins on them.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, let me see, 4 grams of fiber and 140 calories. So, they've got a substantial amount of calories. But if you really want a sandwich, it's the way to go.
And they're high in fiber too.
Yes.
Oh, good. We're getting more questions as they come in. Kristen, where can people go to find some healthy recipes through University of Illinois Extension?
So I'll type in our link. It's go.illinois.edu/nutrition-well. Here you can find a lot of materials that the nutrition team across the state has put together. We also have a blog that you can find recipes as well. And Caitlin, you may have other sources. Mary Liz also has a channel on YouTube. It's called What's Cooking with Mary Liz. So Mary Liz, you could also mention that.
Yes, I think there's 40 some videos, and we've done they're really short, quick little 2 to 5 minute videos on lots of different food items, and check it out.
And then University of Illinois Extension also hosts our Illinois Nutrition Education Program. So they have their individual website, which also has recipes, and that is through their Eat, Move, Save website. I'm going to post Mary Liz's video channel in the chat as well.
And we can include these in the follow-up email to Caitlin, some of these links.
Yeah, that would be an even faster idea.
And I know in my unit, so if you're in the Henry Mercer, Rock Island and Stark area, our Facebook page, our community workers, our SNAP-Ed workers, they've been doing a great job turning some of those recipes from the Eat, Move, Save website into short videos. So if you're looking for really short, quick videos on some of those recipes, that would be a great source. And I can share that as well.
All right, another question. Is information available on fiber content for various foods? So quick cooking oatmeal, breakfast bars, or breakfast cereals. Where might someone go to find information about fiber on those products?
For fiber specifically, or for recipes, or just like cooking ideas? Because I know a lot of us have done different blogs and things on what to do with these different foods. Are you looking for fiber specifically? USDA is a good source if you're looking for like nutrition information.
And of course, the nutrition facts label on your particular product is a great reference. Fiber has to be listed on that label.
I'm gonna reach for my quick, I have these quick oats that I make in the mornings for a quick breakfast, and I like to put like bananas and like nut butter on them. So just looking at my label, this has 4 grams of fiber per half cup. So then I top it with banana and some different seeds and things. It's a very satisfying breakfast.
All right, so we have hit around 11:35 here. So if you need to get off, thank you so much for hanging out with us today and trying to smell Mary Liz cooking through the computer. If you have not completed the survey, if you want to scroll up and chat, you can find that again, or we will send it out to your email along with information on the other materials and the recording soon to come. So if you want to revisit anything that we talked about today, that recording will be available soon. We did have an additional question. A couple of additional questions. Kristen, any sources for insoluble fiber?
Insoluble fiber, I like to think of like your whole wheat breads as being a good source. The outer skins of fruits and vegetables are also a good source. So leave those skins on. Don't peel them.
Great. And then another question, is there any kind of fiber that we should be leery of in purchasing foods?
Like they've added it in. Usually I think the fiber that's added in is in the form of inulin. And I don't know if there's a health concern with that or not. I haven't seen anything like that before. Caitlin or Mary Liz, you may have other thoughts on this.
No,
not that I'm
not
aware
that I know of.
You're spot on that fiber is sometimes added to foods that don't typically have either any fiber or much fiber. So you might see fiber added to yogurt. But no, I'm not aware of any concerns around the added fibers. If it gives you any digestive upset, you may not want to purchase that product anymore, but the fibers that are added are still a good source of fiber. Oh, everyone's being so kind in the chat. All sorts of thank yous.
Thank you all for tuning in today.
We'll stick around if anyone has other questions, but again, thank you all for coming on. If you need to step off, thanks for joining us today, and check your emails for follow-up information. And if you have not signed up for next week's lesson, our last one of our series, be sure to do so. It's going to be on added sugars.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yes, have a good day. Thank you all so much.
All right, we do have an extra question. So Alice asked about differences between the fiber content of canned fresh or frozen vegetables? And Kristen, I'm going to defer to you as our presenter today, if you have time.
I was talking, but I wasn't muted.
Oh,
Sorry about that. I talked for a good like 30 seconds probably. So I was going to say, I haven't actually compared the three side by side, but fresh and frozen would be the same. Cans, I want to say that it'd be the same, but I'd have to double check. Do you know, Caitlin, for sure?
yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's the same across the board. There might be, very small changes because canning can start to break down some of the fibers, so they're just more accessible to our bodies. But there shouldn't be any substantial difference between those three types of vegetable products.
Good question. All right, well, that's it for us today. So I'm going to go ahead and close the presentation. And if you're still on, just know that we will be sending a follow-up email with all of these links and resources. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.